Hello, everyone. This is Aidan Coughlin and Victoria Pecci, and this is Inside Veganism, and we're live.
Yep.
We're live. We're full of energy. We've been scrambling to get the show on the air in some form that is acceptable, and I think we've just about done that. And we've got a great show lined up, have we not?
We have indeed.
Who have we got coming up?
So we've got James, we've got Laura and Elena, and we're all going to be talking with them about different stuff in the vegan movement. We're going to be talking a bit about mental health as well with activism and just how that plays, how that affects us as individuals.
Excellent. Okay, let's bring James in. How are you, James?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. And this is the second time we've spoken. We spoke, I think, in February, and at the time, I think you were nursing an injury of some kind. How's that injury working out for you, and how did you sustain it in the first place?
I was worried you'd ask me that. So it was a leg break, which I did while trampolining a trampoline park. So it's been 3 months of recovery, but I am several weeks ahead of where the doctors thought I was. So I blame that on my good health and my good diet.
Have you managed to, because I know you're very much into your fitness, have you been able to sort of maintain your physique throughout the period whereby you're exerting less energy?
Unfortunately not, no. So about an inch on my waist, a few extra kilos, but I'm back now. So I'm catching up on lost time.
Excellent stuff. And everything that's happening in Norwich looks really exciting. It looks like you're achieving fantastic things over there. How would you summarize the success of Anonymous for the Voiceless over in Norfolk?
Fantastic. So I've been a Anonymous for the Voiceless organizer in the Norwich chapter since January. Myself and my co-organizer Samuel Jackson, and it's fantastic. We've got 4 32-inch televisions. We've got a really good location. We've got a huge range of activists who join us, a good solid base, and we're there every 2 weeks.
It's interesting. It's great because, James, you're only 40 miles away from where we're speaking now, and it really speaks to the sort of regional variation about veganism. It can seem really thriving and vibrant in one city, and you move to another city and people think veganism means you don't eat potatoes. So how does my part of the world catch up with you, James? What is it about Norwich that makes this movement so vibrant, do you think?
Well, Norwich is an incredibly progressive city. I'm not too sure why. Maybe because of the universities we have. I honestly don't know, but they're very liberal. They're open to all of the previous movements, all of them really, the LGBT, for example, and veganism. We've got some great restaurants, which cater specifically for veganism, but all the big restaurants now offer it as well. So in Norwich, you are spoiled for choice, really. You can go anywhere. That really helps, because when we are doing activism, when we're talking to the public, giving them education, they walk down the high street that we're on and they see signs outside these places advertising the vegan food. So it is popping up the word. They can't really hide from the word anymore, and it seems quite normal.
And in terms of Anonymous for the Voiceless, you have an anniversary coming up soon, don't you?
Yeah, it was last month. So our 2-year anniversary since we first started in Melbourne 2 years ago. And since then we've expanded. We're now worldwide, and we have nearly 600 chapters across the globe. So in cities and towns, 600 separate groups, all with their own team of activists, which operate at least once a month. Many operate every weekend.
Now, with going out and speaking to members of the public on a routine basis, and also, and indeed, instead, sometimes people that attend vigils, all of this activism sometimes comes with a mental cost, and sometimes it's difficult, isn't it? And Victoria, I know that you wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, it was more, I did a blog post recently talking about, what happens behind the mask and the thoughts that kind of go through your head when you're standing there with a mask on, and watching people's reactions and things that you're thinking, and you just have a lot of thinking time when you're standing there still, and it's just thinking about the animals, and it just really, really takes a toll on your mind mentally. Yeah.
What do you make of it, James? If you're someone that's essentially organising lots of what's going on in Norwich, is there kind of almost like a compression after events, whereby you talk to people about their experiences and get a feeling for how people are doing?
So with our demos, Anonymous for the Voiceless, our demos are called the Cube of Truth, and it's usually a 2 to 3 to 4 hour demonstration, and there'll be two teams, one team which talks to the public and another team that wears a Guy Fawkes mask, as you're probably familiar with, the Anonymous mask, and they will either be holding a sign or showing footage on a laptop or a television screen. In the background, there'll be music playing, sort of emotive music, which will draw the public in, the masks will draw them in, and then they'll be able to then watch the footage. The Cube team, some of the members stay in there the whole time. Some of them almost go into a kind of like a meditative state where they can really relax. Many of our volunteers aren't as confident as talking to the public, so they really enjoy that element. They like to be involved, even though they know that they won't actually be as good as perhaps some of the other more well-practiced outreachers. So they love that. They get in there and they know that they're doing the bit, because that part of the demonstration is the most important part. Without that, we don't have a demonstration. But others, if they need a break, if they want to then swap out and do some outreach, then they can. So some will spend maybe 30 minutes to an hour in there at a time and then swap out. But one thing we always do is we have a debriefing at the end of the event where we go over the success. So one thing we do is we tally up how many members of the public took veganism seriously based on our conversations, and we'll do a group photo, and there really is a good happy atmosphere at the end of it. It's we've all volunteered our time, we've all proactively tried to change minds in a peaceful manner, and we then celebrate that, and we'll usually go for a social gathering afterwards where we can all relax and then just be a little bit more normal with each other as well. So it is a great atmosphere. We have a really good family. So if anyone does feel a little bit emotional, for example, we had a young girl recently, she attended our first one, first time she'd actually seen the footage, even though she was vegan. And she was very upset, but she's coming along again, and she'll be back in the Cube. So you get emotional once you see the footage, but then when you see the footage, you remember why you're there. So
do you think it ever becomes easier, as much footage that you watch? Do you think you adjust to it, or you adapt, or do you think it gets harder? I personally find it actually gets worse the more footage I see. So I'm having to be a bit more selective about what form of activism I'm going to take for my mental state, because I'll be no good if I'm standing there in floods of tears. You know, you need to be proactive in the most positive way. What do you think?
Yeah, certainly for me, it doesn't get easier the more I watch it. I don't become cold to it.
Yeah.
It still affects me just as it did the first time. But now I have a platform of doing something with that, so I can now take that emotion, that feeling of helplessness when I see what these poor animals are being put through, and I can then use that to drive me and spread information and stop it happening less in the future.
Yeah,
it's interesting, isn't it, James? Because I react differently to how Victoria reacts, and I probably sound completely awful and soulless. I have got to the point now where the footage always appalls me and it always disgusts me, but it no longer upsets me. And I think I've just gone to a different stage, but everyone, of course, reacts differently. And I think one thing that perhaps we are thinking within this household is it appropriate for certain people to do certain types of activities? And I think maybe for you in the future, you need to seriously consider whether you want to see 20,000 chickens about to be slaughtered.
Yeah, it's not good.
In terms of vigils, James, what's your thoughts about vigils and what their utility is and what type of experiences people have doing these vigils?
So vigils is a lot more emotional, of course, because you're there half a meter away from these animals, which are about to be killed, and be killed within hours. So yeah, I mean, tears are just common practice really for activists there, but it's an important role we play when we're there. We're capturing footage of the animals, we're sharing on Facebook. It's also showing the slaughterhouse workers that we're not going away. We will be there. It's not aggressive at all. It is of course peaceful, but we're there for the animals. We're bearing witness to them. We're on top of that, it just reminds us why we're doing what we're doing again. We see them, we look into their eyes, and that, for me anyway, that drives me harder, drives me further. makes me want to do more, makes me want to get out there on that weekend. This weekend, for example, we've got a vigil in the morning on Saturday, and then we've got a cube of truth in the afternoon. And we're hoping that a lot of the activists in the morning take that emotion and uses that to deliver a great outreach in the afternoon.
Yeah.
For those watching, we're happy to take comments or to try and answer questions. Feel free to ask away in the comment section. We're keeping an eye on those, and we can certainly send your questions over to James and some of the guests that are coming on. Again, if you're watching this also, feel free to share this widely. Don't be shy. In terms of these vigils then, James, to people that haven't attended one, how would you explain what happens in its entirety?
So vigils happen. A vigil is set up by the Save movement. Usually, the Save movement is worldwide, and you can watch the videos on YouTube. You can look up your local Save movement on Facebook. But in Norfolk here and Suffolk, we've got a very good relationship with the slaughterhouse. Sounds bad, but in terms of how our demos work outside there, they're quite understanding, and they actually stop the trucks for us. Previously, we used to have to stop the trucks ourselves and slow walk them in while other activists tried to capture footage and spend a couple of minutes with the animals before they got taken through the gates. But here we do have a better setup. So in Norfolk, for example, we have 5 minutes with the animals at least, and it just gives us the opportunity. Very peaceful. And if you haven't done it before, I would strongly recommend doing it, because it takes your activism to the next step. It gives you more purpose. You've seen the footage, but then you've seen it with your eyes. You hear the cries. It's a very different sort of experience to outreach with the public, and it just reminds you. So it's powerful to do both, and like I mentioned, we're doing both this weekend, so that's going to be a very important day.
There's something very surreal about vigils, just the magnitude of it, the truck after truck, and the very mechanized, industrialized nature of it. It's so obscene. And I would say that even for people that are likely to be upset, I think, like you've pretty much indicated, it's certainly worth doing once. It does take it to that whole new level, doesn't it?
Yeah, here in Norfolk, we've got we do various slaughterhouse vigils, but we also have a livestock market vigil, and that is where we see the animals that are about to be sold, usually sold to a slaughterhouse. And we see sheep and dairy cows at the end of their lives. We also see baby calves as well. So that's very interesting. You see all these various animals, and again, you hear the noises, you see them struggle. So it's definitely worth getting to, because it is such a different experience. It will remind you can connect. It will be emotional, so there is no shame in crying, of course, but it's very important, definitely.
I felt perhaps I was a bit sniffy about vigils prior to going to any of them. I've gone to a couple, and it certainly opened my mind. It didn't obviously anger me anymore. I was aware that this was happening, but it was really important to see it. And I think some people are a bit agnostic about the usefulness, say, of vigils. But if nothing else, although these animals are packed tightly and being treated absolutely appallingly, there is at least some safeguard of welfare, even at that level. It's a kind of welfare is really by the by that point. But even when they are just about to be murdered and used for our own vain purposes, there is at least one final safeguard, that there is even a shred of dignity left for those animals.
Yeah, and when we're there, sometimes we're able to touch the animals. Usually with cows and pigs, for example, we can get through the grates, and we try and comfort them in those last few moments as well.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about vigils and about the mental health of the vegan activists a little bit later on, perhaps with Elena and Laura, who are coming on shortly. But let's talk about Norwich livestock market just for a moment. Got a message here from a very good friend of the show, and someone who's been on the show numerous times, Emily Noble, and she says that at Norwich livestock market, some sheep go to slaughter. The cows mostly go onto another farmer until they are deemed no longer profitable. One thing that always strikes me about vigils or about the livestock markets is, where are the meat eaters? Where are they? They should be there justifying all of this. Why are we the ones that are raising an objection? I have all sorts of strange feelings when I'm there about the surreal nature of it. Does it ever strike you as just completely bizarre?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's mad that we're having to do this. These slaves, which are these innocent animals, we're there trying to defend them when everyone else is turning a blind eye to it. They know what happens. They don't want to admit it. You get the few sarcastic people online, especially, who will comment steak, and they know what happens and so on. But most people hide from it. If you post an image, people just scroll past it. They want to ignore it. They just turn an eye. They want to ignore that bit, that part of the process.
No, absolutely. And we're going to bring on Laura Ellen right about now. And I think I can see some awesome sleeves going on there. I'll see a little bit better. I'm just going to bring Laura on. Hey, Laura, how are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Loud and clear.
Sure. Okay, good. Cool.
Absolutely. This chap here, James Crisp, we have James Crisp on the line. Is he a man that you are familiar with in any shape or form?
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, so me and James are actually together. So yeah, we are quite familiar, you could say.
Good stuff. You probably heard some of our conversation regarding vigils.
I did, yeah.
What do you make of the utility of the vigil? How would you sell to a non-activist who is vegan the utility of going to one of these vigils?
So I would say, like, a big thing about going to vigils is that different people do it for such different reasons. So I know a lot of people go for kind of they're bearing witness to the animals, they're saying bye to the animals. Me, not so much, because I think animals that have been in a kind of farm environment, they don't associate touch and cooing and lovey noises as something relaxing. I mean, some may get something from it, but for me, it's being there, being present, and almost allowing the slaughterhouse the knowledge that you're there and they're there. Sometimes it's as well, it can be, for other people, it might be kind of them knowing they're doing something. So even though they might not feel like they're doing a lot outside the front of the slaughterhouse, they're there. And sometimes that's all it has to be. Like, people might come and not talk. They don't have to talk. People are there for their own reasons. And that's kind of good enough for some people. I mean, a lot of people go get really involved, sometimes too involved. But again, it's such an interesting event because it's so highly emotive that just people take such different things from it.
One other aspect of this as well is you often hear about funerals of pensioners or maybe people that have fought in the Second World War and no one attends their funeral. And there's also something about that as well. The idea that all of these sentient creatures are about to be dispatched and there's no one there to witness it. And again, that's another reason why there's a really good moral cause, a moral reason for you to be there.
100%. Yeah. I mean, like I say, a lot of these animals don't respond well to touch and things like that, but it's just being there, and just acknowledging that they are about to die, and there's nothing that there's not a lot you can do about it, but it's sometimes just being there and just allowing them the respect that you're there.
Laura, I don't know if you caught this. I think it was a bit earlier in the show. Victoria, earlier in the week, she'd written a blog post about some of her experiences at vigils, and perhaps for people that are now tuning in, if you want to summarize how you felt after a most recent vigil, and then perhaps Laura would be a good person to bounce those ideas off.
Yeah, well, just at the end of the vigil, well, even during it, I just had so many questions, but there's no one you can ask. You can't really interact with the slaughterhouse workers or the business owners who were actually present at the time. And you just have to watch it. And everybody was being so nice and polite, and you just see the welfare. Well, you see these chickens in such horrific conditions and there's nothing you can do. And it's just so frustrating. I think at the end of it, I just felt pure frustration, anger. I didn't know what to do with myself. I felt like if I saw anyone eating a chicken sandwich, I was going to go insane. And I don't know. What do you think, Laura, when you've been to vigils?
I think, again, because it's such a highly emotive event, people will come out of it, in not so good position, So, a big question is, why are we sad? Why are we sad at a vigil? It's a very traumatic event. If those were, us vegans like to say, if those were dogs, we you know, I think I'm maybe guilty of them wanting to, you know, bring my family and friends along, but I probably wouldn't invite them to a vigil with pigs, because obviously they wouldn't associate that with something that's quite as bad. But again, I'm sure they would if I did bring them. And I think as well, you know, when you're at a vigil, you ask questions like, you know, are we on our own? Because sometimes when you're stood in the middle of nowhere outside a slaughterhouse with 20 other people, you say, am I on my own? Is this doing anything? I can't do anything right now. And also I think the worst part of it is when you have had your time with them and the truck drives away and you know, that's it. And I think that is a really hard time for anybody. I've gone to a lot of vigils, but I'll still cry, like 100%. Like, it's not easy. I think I am quite bad for trying to become quite desensitized to it. But I think I'll never forget the cause, but I think it's knowing how much you can take, and then that reflects back onto mental health and things, you know, knowing how much you can take before you become unproductive. Yeah. So you have to really, really watch it, because it's such a fine balance, and you may one day tip over the edge and you can't do anything. You know, you're done, you're fried. So you have to really watch what you're doing. But I think it's just remembering that it is traumatizing stuff, and you will be sad and you will be angry, but it's learning how you manage that. I think another huge part is aftercare. Like, again, everyone will do it in a different way, but even if it's just like a debrief after the event, some people might go home and not talk to anybody, but I think it's those people you must watch, because it's those people that will really start to struggle, because you can't do it on your own. You know, veganism and fighting, you know, animal agriculture isn't something you can do on your own. So it's really almost forcing people to unite, you know, in the nicest way possible.
Yeah, I think it's really important to make sure that people discuss it and know that they can discuss it. Yeah.
I've got a question here for you, Laura, from Di Evans. And what is your key advice about interaction with the animals, such as pigs or cows? And how would you go about doing this in a dignified way, whereby you're not making things worse and invading what little space there is?
Okay, so for vigils, we have kind of a list of brief rules, which specify things like don't put cameras in animals' faces, be very, you know, be very careful with how loud you are. You know, I mean, talk to them, try and be soothing to them, but don't scare them, because it's a very easy thing to do. You know, when you've got a herd of cattle, for instance, if you go and try and touch one of a herd of cattle, they'll fly in the direction because they don't want to be touched, and that will happen in a truck. I mean, I think the thing to remember is the animals will let you know what they want. So if they come up to the edge of a truck and they start to nuzzle your hand, they want to be touched. But if they're avoiding you, then leave them alone. You know, I mean, it's bad enough for them already, kind of thing. I think it's just, you know, we're there for the animals, and we've got to continue to. Like, people really want to touch the animals, but if they don't want to be touched, then we shouldn't touch them.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we cover this point, Laura, regarding the mental welfare of those that are there to bear witness. If people are struggling with their experiences, not just, actually, it might be something as simple as someone that spends too much time on Facebook scrolling through these videos endlessly. Mm-hmm. What type of advice would you give someone that is struggling mentally with what they're seeing?
I think the first part of kind of recovering from that is asking yourself why. Like, why are you struggling? I think once you learn why, then you can start to arrange ideas in your head about how you sort it out. So if you're struggling because you are struggling with the idea of being on your own, and, you know, you don't think that you're ever going to get anywhere with veganism and all that, I think then you need to start, you know, involving yourself in a small vegan community. You know, if you can, it's easier for some than others. But if it's that you're struggling seeing animals going to slaughter, then you need to stop going to vigils for a while. It's really kind of, I think it's not as simple as it sounds, but it's just allowing yourself to think about why, and just attacking the issue head on. You know, I mean, it's not easy, but talk to people. I think that's the biggest thing. And it's much easier said than done, but we're here for each other. You know, that's the only way we're going to get anywhere.
Yeah, we have a message here from Kitty. And essentially, Kitty is saying, thank you for all the work that you do. And I think one thing that's worth remembering is when you're out there doing these types of events, you are really by proxy there representing so many other people that really would like to be there. But this isn't for everyone. And I don't think we need to castigate anyone for whom it's not suitable. James, we're talking here about mental health, aren't we? And this is something that I thought only women talk about. Do you think that there's enough conversation about this regarding male activists? Is this something that men take seriously, do you think?
So there's not really sort of a system in place to help with mental health, but it's all part of the vegan family. We're all there to look after each other, and I don't see it as women getting special treatment. It's a case that, you know, men will hug, women will hug. We're there for each other. There doesn't appear to be a dividing line. It's all just one big family. We look after each other. You can see if someone's sad, they'll take themselves off for a little while, and someone will be with them within a few minutes to just be there with them, you know, talk them back around, sort of thing. But it's sad. But then we can turn it into positivity, such as outreach, such as online activism, talking to our friends and family about it, sharing the images online. So it's not just conversation. It's then turning that sadness into something. And as soon as you start to see the positive results, you realize why the animals are struggling and why you're struggling alongside them. You're doing it so that you can be their voice.
Yeah.
Something that you're absolutely spot on about, James, is the fraternity, that fraternal feeling amongst activists. I've never seen this in any other group. I feel passionately about a number of things, and some of the things that I feel passionately about, I'm not necessarily supported in that way. But in terms of veganism, I do know that if I were to feel low and down about the type of horrible scenes that I see routinely, I know that I could speak to people. And for those listening to this, I think the point is that applies to males and females, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, James, I know we've only got a few more minutes with you and then a few further minutes with Laura. Just want to give you a chance, James, before you go, just to give a shout out to where people can find you online and perhaps to mention forthcoming events that you've got coming up.
Yeah, so you can find me online personally, Instagram and Facebook, James Crisp or James_Crisp. You'll be able to find me on there. Post regularly. I answer any questions, so feel free to message me about anything. In terms of how to get in contact with Anonymous for the Voiceless, if you want to volunteer some time and use that energy that you've got, again, like I said, if you're shy, you can still take part in it, because you can wear the mask, you can be there for the animals, you can take part in the most important part of our demonstration, which is holding the sign, holding the screen, showing the footage, while other people will be doing the talking. So no matter how confident or not confident you are, there is a role for you to play. If you're wanting to do that, then you can search us on Facebook. You can simply search Cube of Truth, and then it'll bring up the list of events. You can visit the Anonymous for the Voiceless Facebook page, or you can search cubeoftruth.com, and on there you'll be able to find all the resources we share with people, but you'll also be able to find the list of events in every city across the country. And the world, in fact. So we're in over 600 cities worldwide. So there's one in every major city now. A couple of big events. It's a really big year this year. So we're now going into our second year as an organization, and we have a 24-hour Cube of Truth, so a 24-hour long demonstration, followed by a silent march through the streets of Berlin. So we've picked Berlin as our city of choice, and we'll be good for 24 hours straight. And that is towards the end of June, the 23rd and the 24th of June. So please come along to that. You can find all the details on Facebook. And as probably many of your listeners are already aware, there is the official Animal Rights March happening in August. And that's happening in London on a Saturday. And the Sunday afterwards, the 26th of August, we've got a worldwide meetup happening in London for Anonymous for the Voiceless. So several hours of activism. We're expecting hundreds of attendees there, and again, there may be a chance to do another march through London then as well. So 2 big events plus all the individual events in your area. So plenty of chance to get involved. And like I said, if you're unsure or if you have any questions, you can message me.
James, thank you so much. You are a warrior. We shall speak again. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure. So that was James Crisp. Whilst James was talking, we had a comment, Laura, from Emily, and this is something certainly worth talking about. And she says that regarding the issue of mental health, no one talks about this enough. Unfortunately, most of the activists I have known who have committed suicide were male. And I guess I'm not surprised to hear that. What type of resources are out there for men? I mean, how would you recommend men go about obtaining the support that they need?
So I don't personally know a lot about the kind of female-male balance in mental health, but I think there's kind of a general, there is a lot of online support, but I think the main issue is people who are struggling mentally don't often know how bad it is at the time. People might think they're struggling a bit, but people have committed suicide, so it's obviously a lot more serious than people think. And I think the biggest issue always is that often their friendship group and the people around them don't know. And I think that's a really, really big thing. And I think that stems from people not asking the questions that lead them to know. And I think obviously we all know it's kind of a taboo subject and it isn't as spoken about. But I think one thing I've really noticed throughout like the vegan movement and just vegans in general, they're a lot more ready to listen to people who are struggling. I think because they know that people struggle and they know that animals struggle, and it's just a kind of general, it's just a compassion, it's just that. So I don't think, if I'm honest, there's a lot of support out there apart from kind of general things like Samaritans and things like that. I can't think of the number right now off the top of my head, which isn't very good because it's meant to be simple and easy to remember. But there's the Samaritans. But I think a big thing that I would say is just watch out for people around you. I think that's a really, really, really important thing. Like unfortunately, last week, somebody who I used to know quite closely committed suicide. And it was, obviously he did it to himself, but not out of choice. It's never going to be out of literal choice. He did it in desperation. And I think that was, again, from him not talking to people, like talking is such a huge thing. And I've been in similar-ish situations myself, and the thing that got me out of it most was just talking to people, and it's so underrated. So it's just talking as much as you can, even if you feel like you don't want to, just do it.
I suspect, and I could be entirely wrong, but there are perhaps two barriers for men. The first barrier is that men don't talk about anything, and the second barrier is because there are less other men who are vegan. There are less men who will understand the issues that are concerned. I can imagine what response I would get. It would be, pull yourself together. You're meant to eat meat. Stop being so sad about it. They're just animals. So I'm not trying to make a case that it's more difficult for men what they see, but perhaps there is something about men that makes them less able to go and get that support that they need.
That's it, 100%. I'm not the best person to speak to about the kind of female-male balance in mental health, but I know that having people around me, for instance, James and my best friend Mimi, who are both vegan, I'm very lucky to have them both because James and Mimi are all very close, and I'm very lucky that I can speak to those very openly about these issues. A lot of people don't have that, but I'd really, really recommend people to find that if you don't have it. Again, not so easy, but you just need vegan friends, and there's such a huge vegan community now. There's so many pages on Facebook where you can meet other vegans just as friends, just to have someone to speak to.
Yeah, definitely.
No, absolutely. And if someone in the comment section has got that number for the Samaritans, please do type it away, and I'll make sure it goes up on the screen. What events have you got? Yeah, what events have you got coming up then in the very near future?
So Suffolk Animal Save has got one on the 14th of May, which is in at Poultry. Do you guys attend that? Are you guys planning on attending?
The story behind Poultry is, I think it's my colleague into a bit of a mental tailspin. Was that a different one?
That was a different one.
Okay, but we are aware of the murder factory. Yes.
Yes, it's really interesting, Poultry, because it's very close to the high street of Eye. So it's but the thing is with chickens as well is, unlike pigs, they don't scream, so it's quite safe in the middle of Eye. Whereas CK Meats is in Eye also, but it's about 5 minutes down the road, but it's on an industrial estate, so it's just out of the way, so people can't hear it. Tactically so, I'm sure. And there is also a slaughterhouse which Norfolk Animal Save cover in Watton, which is right in the middle of, it's not hugely populated, but a residential area. It's in a town, with school buses and things that drive past, and it's right on the main road. So people walk past it. They walk their dogs. There's a footpath down the side of it, and yeah, people walk their dogs down there, and you can hear them screaming. So that is on the 9th of May, and that is in Watton, the Norfolk Animal Save. And again, I mean, they're all around the country. Well, they're all around the world. So if you were to go onto the Save Movement Facebook, there are loads of links on there, and you can actually find a map to find your closest vigil. And again, people are so welcoming. I mean, even if you don't know anyone at these events, you can message someone and they'll be happy to invite you and welcome you.
Yeah, everyone's definitely very welcoming.
Yes.
Laura, I think we just about have to let you go. If you could give one bit of advice then to someone who is suffering some distress from what they're seeing, what's that key bit of advice that you would give?
I think if I could give one bit of advice for someone struggling, is really push yourself to reach out to somebody else. I think that is the biggest piece of advice, and it's something that people might think they're doing, but it's really helpful. And if you think you've done it, then speak to someone new, because I think vegan company and someone that understands you is the most important thing you can have. You can't do it on your own, and I think quite a lot of the time, if it's a doctor that isn't vegan, they can't help you either. So it's reaching out to other vegans that can help you mentally. And just vegan friends. I think it's very underrated.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good community. It's a big community. I know that when we walk down the high street, we feel like we're in a parallel universe and we're just that one vegan who's standing for something. But if you go online, as you say, there are groups there, and there are some very friendly people. They might argue amongst themselves about this, that, and the other thing, but ultimately they want everyone to, to be the best person that they can be. So I think you're quite right. And thank you for stepping in at short notice. I really appreciate that. No worries. Laura, where can people find you on Instagram and so forth?
So on Facebook, I'm Laura Ellen, and on Instagram, it's a bit awkward. It's Lozza, so that's ITSLOZZAYANNO. I should have written it down, really.
Well, feel free to write that in the comment section. Put the link straight to that page so people can do that.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Well, Laura, I know we haven't met. Hopefully, in the future, I'll see you. I'll see you in person. Thank you so much for all that you do.
Vigils?
Yeah, there's a new one that's started in my part of the world. There's the Ipswich Chicken Sale. Oh, really? Okay. Well, yeah. I don't know whether to say that's great or to commiserate you. I have mixed feelings about that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yes, thank you so much, Lauren. You too. Take care. Bye.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Well, what a great team Laura and James are.
Yeah, definitely. They got all aspects covered. Yeah, very strong.
They're on it. The vegan movement is safe with those two in Norfolk. Okay, so we have another guest.
We do. We have Elena.
Okay, let's bring Elena on, and then we'll find out a little bit more about Elena. She'll be popping up on the screen. How are you, Elena?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent, and we can hear you very well. Thank you for coming in. Victoria, you know Elena online. So do you want to explain the context in which you know Elena in the first place?
Yeah, so basically when I first went vegan, it's like how Laura was saying earlier, you need to kind of find your vegan friends and your little community. And I was just looking through at people and I came across Elena, and Elena does a lot of fitness and is vegan. And I commented on one of her pictures recently and said she's like Jessica Rabbit because she works very hard on her body. It's very impressive and very inspirational woman as well. And just reached out to her a few times and spoken about a few things. And I think Elena is a great role model in the vegan movement in the UK.
There you go. I think you should just go now, Elena. It doesn't get any better than that. All you can do in the next 20 minutes is damage your brand. It's been put up at a very high level. So we'll have to try and maintain it. So what type of or what part of veganism would you describe as being your forte? Is it the fitness side, the activism side? How would you describe your relationship with it?
I'd say it's a bit of everything, really. Like when I started, it was primarily sort of activism, and then I dabbled in fitness, and it's kind of remained with the health and sort of activism, really.
And let's talk about fitness just momentarily then, because I probably want to center back onto the main theme for this show. But tell us about your fitness regime. What is it you get up to?
I just found since I've gone vegan that I've got so much more energy. I used to come home from work and find myself falling asleep on the sofa. I didn't really have a lot of energy, and I just didn't really have the motivation to do anything. So with my fitness, it is primarily weightlifting, and it's now gone over more to yoga. But anything that kind of gets me moving, I'm happy to try.
Mm-hmm. And you said recently as well that you've moved more on to doing yoga through just being a bit more chilled and a bit more thoughtful about life and looking around you and what's going on, as opposed to getting maybe sucked into social media world, because it is a bit of a bubble, isn't it? And we spoke earlier on the phone about Instagram being very nicey and pretty, and whereas Facebook is a little bit more raw with some of the footage that you see about veganism. And you were saying on the phone that you feel a bit more about maybe you want to adapt your Instagram page a bit more and maybe go a bit more back to activism.
Yeah, so I kind of found that the more you tamper down your Instagram and make it more nicey, the more sort of followers you will get. But then I kind of felt like, what's the point of having hundreds and hundreds of followers, thousands, whatever, if you're not making a difference? To me, making a difference was more important than having a number of followers on my account. So I think there's always more that people can do with their Instagram if they are vegan, just even posting something on a story or the odd post, or just not even, it doesn't have to be a post. It could be something in a caption. There is more that people can do. And I think if they are lucky enough to have a big platform, then they should try and share more.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that that's why I said earlier on that you're very inspirational, because you cover quite a vast area of veganism. You talk about fitness, you talk about health, you talk about well-being. You cover so many different aspects, and some people aren't doing that. It's a lot more nicey, but you're a lot more real. And I think we need more people to be a lot more real in some of the vegan movements and what they actually feel and what they're going through. And I think you do that very well. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
It's true.
You heard us talking throughout the show about that relationship between the type of events that we see, the experiences that we have, and then trying to find a way of dealing with all of those conflicting emotions and trying to live a normal life. What experiences have you had regarding perhaps upsetting scenes and trying to reconcile those, and perhaps seeing people around you also being affected by the horrors that is the dairy industry, the meat industry, the fur industry, etc.?
I'll be honest, when it comes to activism, I haven't done as much as I wanted to. That is an area that I definitely want to delve into more this year and the next coming years. But I haven't done any vigils or anything, because I know that I would find it very upsetting. But it's something that I do want to do because I feel like I have to see it, because you can't keep sort of signaling out this message if you haven't seen it firsthand. But yeah, activism is definitely something that I want to do more. But I think the hardest part for me is having such close friends and family that get veganism, but they don't act on it. That's the hardest part for me. I have my mum and dad, they are animal lovers. They do love animals, but they just can't seem to stop eating meat. It's quite frustrating.
They love animals, but they can't stop eating them. That old chestnut.
Well, I don't know. I hear it varying from so many different things. I've got older people in my family that claim that they're too old to make a change, and I'm like, there is no such thing as too old. There's various other things, I'm too lazy. My mom, bless her, she does love animals, but she says to me, I can't really be bothered to make all these endless recipes. And I'm like, it's not about that. Making recipes, it's having food. It can be a can of tinned potatoes, rice, a curry patak sauce or something, mix it up with some basil on top. It can be anything. It doesn't need to be difficult.
Yeah.
Are you on Twitter at all?
No, not really. I've not really got into Twitter.
Well, the reason I ask is Toby Brown has posited the question of Twitter and activism. And well, if you don't use it, Toby, I'll do my best to answer this. I'm not convinced that Twitter is good for anything. Twitter is full of anonymous trolls, people that are just there to post memes of bacon The one advantage Facebook has, apart from sharing all of your data with everybody, and including the Kremlin most likely, is at least Facebook is not anonymous, and therefore people are at least a little bit more sensible in what they say. Twitter has none of those safeguards whatsoever, and I think many people are out there just to troll you. I'm sure there are people out there that are using that platform very well indeed. I think social media, though, for all of the great things that it's gifted us, has also gifted us a number of problems. So what about Instagram? How would you find Instagram, Elena, as being a useful vehicle for activism?
Instagram is my favorite. I find that you can find like really popular people on there, and instead of just scrolling through posts or anything, you can click on their stories and you'll get like a feel of who they are as a person. So you can kind of dart bits of veganism in there. Same for the captions, same for the pictures, really. Like, it's not so much about content, it can be just influencing, and I think that is another easy platform.
I mean, for me, as Victoria will tell you, veganism has never been about food for me. I think probably if it wasn't for Victoria, I would have wasted away by now. I would happily eat just Trek bars all day if I'm not cooked for, and that's terrible. And I completely concede that. It's never been about health for me, and for a lot of people, it is absolutely about what's on the plate. And I think that's where Instagram is so helpful, because although it might not be the best medium for transferring messages about the injustice and the greed and everything else involved in animal agriculture, it does have very nice, shiny pictures of food and very colourful pictures of male and female fitness stars who are vegan. So if nothing else, it's got that utility, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Like, it wasn't that long ago I kind of partook and got some sort of fitness coaching from a vegan athlete. She's a bikini model, and she's been amazing. So she's kind of taught me the importance of nutrition and how it is about the animals, and it is about raising awareness to what they go through. But it's it doesn't have to be boring to live a vegan lifestyle eating the food. It is about fueling your body, healing your body, and giving it the fuel that it requires to perform. So it's kind of in that way, Instagram, connecting through that way, has taught me the importance of nutrition and how you can live a healthier lifestyle and how you're going to benefit from living in such a way.
I did see a survey that linked the rise in veganism with the success of Instagram. And I don't know if that's a correlation that can be proven in any way, but I think there is something there. There is something with Instagram. I think Facebook has that utility as well. Those viral videos of Earthling Ed or Joey Carbstrong issuing just a 2-minute monologue, whereby they're not prevaricating, they're going straight into the argument. And there is something tremendously useful about that, isn't there?
Yeah, you're seeing like the highlight of that clip, and I think it's a good thing that Instagram's like minute videos, because it literally will lure you in to click and look into things more.
Yeah.
One thing I really do enjoy Instagram for also, though, is many of the images on Instagram are positive. They're positive reinforcement about veganism. I think Facebook tends to be extolling the evil of animal agriculture, whereas Instagram, although of course there are some horrific images on Instagram as well about all the types of injustices that are being exposed by the vegan movement, Instagram does have that kind of positive bubble in some ways. And you're a big user of Instagram.
I am. Yep. I love Instagram.
Why do you use Instagram above anything else?
It's just because it's visual and you just make that connection instantly. You don't need to have to read lots of stuff or do anything. You just, you just see with your eyes and that's it. And you just take away from it what's there, the picture's the picture. It's that simple for me. Yeah.
What part of the world are you joining us from, Elena, at the moment? I didn't ask that earlier.
UK.
Yeah, no, I certainly got that. But where, you haven't got to give me your postcode, but geographically, whereabouts are you?
Cambridgeshire.
Cambridgeshire. Now, I would imagine, I don't know this for a fact, but I would imagine that's a good place to be a vegan, no?
It could be better, really. I mean, they have some, but I think it could be more advanced for sure.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
I'm really surprised to hear that. I would have thought Cambridge and Cambridgeshire generally would be a place where it's all happening. I'm surprised that it's not more vibrant there.
Actually, listening to James and his partner, like, yeah, I'm a bit envious not to be closer to Norwich, because I go there quite a bit. And a place like Norwich, like London, you know, they are, to me, what I'd call more advanced. There are always options in like Cambridgeshire, but it's not huge.
Toby asks about using Instagram to coordinate events. It's certainly something that you can do to highlight when an event is. I think in terms of corralling people to the event, I think Facebook just has the edge with the Facebook groups, the Facebook notifications that pop up on your screen. It's something you probably agreed to go to 6 months ago, completely forgot about. And then you'll have a reminder that pops up that says that I'm expected at a vigil at 6 a.m. that I'd completely forgotten about. So it kind of shames you into action. I mean, you're part of the world, even if it's not as great as it could be in terms of veganism. We're here in Ipswich and it's terrible here. It's really bad. We don't have, I think it's fair to say, a dedicated vegan cafe.
Well, there's one about to open, I've heard.
One about to open, yeah. If we drive up the A140, which is a task that I would never want to bestow on anyone, but if we do that and head up the A140, Norwich is replete with all these vegan cafes. What's Cambridge city centre like then in terms of veganism?
It's not too bad. I mean, you have STEM Glory. They're a vegan eatery, and they're kind of sort of alongside like a yoga studio, so it's quite vegan-esque. You've got, there's more other places like you can, what's the other one I'm thinking of? There are a few, but the ones I go to kind of end up being places that offer vegan food but aren't vegan themselves. You've got the Rainbow Cafe as well. They're like a vegan cafe, but they do vegetarian food as well. So there's
I suppose the popularity of the movement means that, in a sense, although we'd much rather have those independent vegan cafes run by vegans, because of the popularity of the movement, places like Wagamama, you could go there and if they only served that vegan menu, you'd be quite happy for that as a vegan restaurant. There's sort of quite a lot there, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, things like Wetherspoons, I think even like Nando's do something now. Like, yeah, it's given an option for everyone, because I think as well, loads of people are in social environments where they're invited to like birthday parties or, you know, leaving events and stuff, and you want to think, crap, what am I going to eat? And these places are rolling out, you know, vegan food, so it's no one gets left out. It's good.
Yeah. So what happens with you then when you go out with your family and you're in that situation for a meal, and then you say that your mum and dad still like eating animals? What kind of, do you have any interesting conversations at the table, or do you just sit there and don't say anything? Because I've actually got a situation coming up where I'm going out with my siblings and my father for a special meal, and they all eat meat, all of them, and I'm just dreading it. And if you've got any advice or any situations where you've just not known what to do.
Well, I shouldn't speak too bad of my parents, because since I have gone vegan, they have kind of cut stuff out. Like they don't really eat as much meat. They eat it more for special occasions, which actually kind of does my head in a bit more, because you know, why special occasion? Like, just don't eat it at all. But yeah, I think the bit that annoys me most is when I am around people that do eat meat, they apologise, and when I do go out with them, they say, "Oh, sorry, Elena, but I'm going to order the lamb." And I'm like, why are you saying sorry to me? Like, say sorry to the lamb, which is going to be on your plate. Like, yeah, I think sometimes you don't have to say anything. I think sometimes being in the presence of a vegan, they kind of they feel something more.
They do, definitely. They do go a bit funny. Some people, it's difficult. Yeah, the guilt. It is. That's exactly it, isn't it? The guilt coming through, and they don't know what to do with themselves.
Let me tell you
make
something.
Them feel something.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something, Elena. I know that the stereotype is that you know someone's vegan because, of course, they announce that fact with glee and with self-righteousness. But I will tell you for a fact, this is completely true. I haven't even told you this yet. On 4 occasions yesterday, on 4 separate occasions, people told me that I was vegan. I didn't prompt it. It just came up. And the more I thought about it, the more I think actually that happens far more than I ever announced that I'm vegan. People will shoehorn it into a conversation just to have a dig.
I get that as well. Yeah. Yeah, we had it's kind of non-related, but at my workplace, we do like gas analyzers and stuff. The marketing is nothing interesting, but we had someone that comes from a turkey factory, and we give them the gas analyzers to analyze the environment or whatever. And he was like, yeah, my job is like stuffing the turkeys and all this lot. And someone goes, oh yeah, talk to Elena because she's vegan.
That's exactly it, isn't it? And yet there we are, Elena.
I think they're the most curious. I think they're the most curious when they bring up the fact that you're a vegan, because they want to kind of bring up that topic again.
Yeah.
Their own special way of doing it.
So how optimistic then do you feel about the vegan movement in terms of its overall success? Where do you think that we might be in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, 50 years' time?
Oh yeah, I think it's the movement is absolutely growing. Like there's a lot more brands, a lot more companies are kind of jumping on it because there is such a demand for it. Cruelty free is huge at the moment in like, you know, makeup and products, like everything. So I think the more demand there is, the more companies are going to kind of keep bringing out these products to kind of make everyone happy. And the fact that it's just so easy to be vegan, there is not any food that can't be veganized. There's not really most places you can go and not get vegan food. I think as more popular people kind of join the bandwagon as well, it kind of influences other people as well. So I don't really see a cap to veganism. It's just going to keep on growing and growing.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know if Gordon Ramsay is trolling people or he is legitimately going vegan, but if he did, that would be the ultimate bandwagon jump, wouldn't it?
I don't know if he was just poaching for attention on that post. Like, I think he's brought out a vegan pizza, but I don't know if he's gone vegan himself. But if he did, then hats off to him. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine, though, isn't it? A really angry chef screaming at someone for not braising the tofu correctly. Doesn't have the same ring to it, I don't think.
Well, I think if he didn't eat meat, maybe he'd be a bit calmer.
Oh,
there you go. It's that toxic masculinity, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. I also think if you can't promote a peaceful lifestyle if you're kind of putting all that fear and suffering into your body. So.
Yeah, well, it's not food; it is violence, as is often chanted, and is as is quite correct. We're sort of coming up to 8 o'clock now. So, where can people find your good self online, and what events are you sort of potentially wanting to put out there for people to be aware of?
I think this has already been said, but the march, like I was at the march last year, and it was incredible. I was at the march the year before that, and the way that it grew was just amazing. So they probably reckon they will double it, and that'll be awesome. But you can mostly just find me on Instagram, really. Like I'm starting up YouTube as well. So just Elena the Vegan.
Awesome.
And on Instagram, what was your Instagram handle?
Elena the Vegan.
Awesome. And feel free to chuck that in the comment section so people can click the link. Otherwise, people aren't going to necessarily find that so easily. Well, it's been great talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And
take care. Bye.
Bye.
Awesome. There we go. And yeah, Toby Brown expressing his excitement about the march. We went to the march last year. We got stranded in London.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
I haven't forgotten about that at all. I never will, because we were put on the wrong bus.
Couple of times.
Trains weren't running. You try and find vegan food at 11:30 in some godforsaken London borough. It was not fun, but it was certainly worth it. It wasn't about us. It was about a greater cause.
Yeah, definitely. It was an experience.
It was an experience. So that's pretty much it from us. We'll be back in a week's time, and 2 weeks' time is Women's Hour.
Yeah, Women's Hour.
So for people that might not have experienced the delight that is Women's Hour, what happens on that show? It's on the third Thursday of each month, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And it's just an all-female panel talking about vegan-related issues. And we will be delving a bit more into thoughts and feelings with activism. I'm actually going to be going up to meet some friends next week. I may do a small little video for you guys to see where we're going to be discussing it. But yeah.
Well, I always look forward to that, because I don't have to appear on camera. I merely sit at the back pressing a few buttons, and that makes it nice and easy. Thank you, Catherine. Catherine says free inspirational guests. And thank you to us. Well, no, thank you to you. You're certainly putting yourself out more by watching it than we are by presenting it. So we really appreciate that. And I think the comment that we'll leave on is the one from Anthony, who is quite correct to say that the vegan movement is unstoppable. Certainly won't get any argument from me. This has been Aidan Coughlin and Victoria Pecci, and this is Inside Veganism.